Trey Flowers, released today by the Detroit Lions, that 5-year, $90 million contract that Matt Patricia and the Lions signed to Trey Flowers to a couple of years ago, doesn't end up working out so well for Detroit. He's been injured the last couple of years, only played 600 snaps over the last 2 seasons, but for obvious reasons, go right on down the line from Kyle Van Noy to Trent Brown to wherever you want to go next with it. There are a lot of names that the Patriots have brought him back for second stints, and Trey Flowers feels like somebody that would fit right into that mold.
Yeah, absolutely. And not only that, I mean, he absolutely feels a need. You know, this team needs a guy. A lot of people earlier in the offseason, maybe even to this point, talked about bringing Chandler Jones back, right? You can't have, and it would be fun. Like, I like Chandler Jones, he's a good player. You can't have Chandler Jones, Matthew Judon in the same defense. Not the way they play defense. If you put those two guys on the edge against the Buffalo Bills, Josh Allen's going to run for approximately 350 yards in that game. What the Patriots really need, especially now that they've released Kyle Van Noy, they need a big body. Like Judon's going to pin his ears back and go after the quarterback. And that's great, and that's awesome. You need a pass rusher like that. It's really tough to have guys like that on both sides because you lose your contain, you lose your pass rush discipline. What they really need is a big body on that strong side who's going to hold that pocket, who's going to hold up the edge against the run, basically cut that side off from anybody breaking to the outside, either a running back or a scrambling quarterback. Trey Flowers can do that, and within that context, can still get after the quarterback. He had 21 sacks in New England his first stint here. That is exactly what this team needs. A player like that would be a huge boost to this defense. He looks like he can still do it at a high level. His production issues in Detroit, I don't think they were due to talent drop-off. I think they were just due to, one, the team as a whole sucked, and two, he couldn't stay on the field. If he stays healthy, he would be a massive, massive boost. This is absolutely something the Patriots should pursue. The other thing, let me ask you, I don't know if you looked this up today. If you didn't, I'm really curious what you think because I was surprised. How old do you think Trey Flowers is?
Probably 27.
Oh, you looked it up, didn't you? No, you looked it up.
You have 4 years in the NFL. You're 25, 26.
You put too much thought into it. Gut reaction, I figured Trey Flowers is probably about 30. He's 28. He'll turn 29 in camp. He's a guy realistically, and because of those injuries I mentioned, I don't know that his value, his market will reflect a player of his skill set because I think teams are going to look at that. 7 games in 2020, 7 games in 2021, they're going to be concerned. He is absolutely a candidate. He is the perfect candidate for come here for a year, reset your market, then go get paid. Like, that's what he needs. If he plays a fully healthy season in New England, that could be a $10, $15 million a year AAV difference between him signing a long-term contract right now and him signing it next year. So a guy I think they can get on a one-year deal. They can get on affordable money who fills a need. Yes, 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 and yes. This is the reunion. And we've kind of talked about it in passing on the air, off the air. Now it's real. He's been cut. This is the reunion the Patriots should pursue outside of whatever's going on at the cornerback situation. Trey Flowers might be my top-ranked free agent for the Patriots right now.
And this can happen right away. This can happen awfully quickly. And I go back to, I remember last year, it might have been the exact same show that Kyle Van Noy got released by the Miami Dolphins, and we did a segment on the Patriots signing Kyle Van Noy almost immediately, and then within 24 hours or something like that, it came together, and they did end up bringing Kyle Van Noy back. Because he was released, he doesn't have to wait till the start of the league year or the legal tampering period to sign a contract. So Trey Flowers could be signed by the end of the weekend. He could be signed within the next day or two.
For what it's worth, because it's an interesting point. And I wondered the historical context on this, because we have a really good example in last year in Van Noy, like you mentioned.
Yeah.
Van Noy signed the Friday of free agency week last year, right? I believe the new league year was the 17th, right?
Right.
So he signed on the 19th last year, that Friday.
Yeah. Okay. So he did wait a little bit until the market opened up is what you're saying.
Right. Yeah. Okay. Which I would look, it's a good point. I would think that both Flowers and the Patriots want to see what the market looks like. I don't think they'd handcuff themselves right before you can really see what's going on.
Yeah. I think the other thing with Trey Flowers, you pretty much summed up why he's a great fit. The one other thing I would say is that they need somebody on that defensive line besides Judon and Barmore that can beat a block. because they have a bunch of guys and Lawrence Guy and Devon Godshaw. I think they thought that guy was going to be Dietrich Wise, and that hasn't necessarily worked out. And I can look it up here in a second. Miguel probably has it up on Pat's Cap on his Twitter handle. The Patriots, what they could potentially save by cutting Dietrich Wise or trading Dietrich Wise might actually make this move a twofer, right? Where you bring Trey Flowers back and you might end up moving on from Wise, who's probably the other guy that they thought was going to be that block beater on the line of scrimmage. You got guys like Lawrence Guy, Devon Godshaw, those types of players are gap eaters. They're holding the line of scrimmage. They are not guys that are meant to penetrate and get in the backfield and make splash plays behind the line of scrimmage. When the season wore on and Judon faded a little bit, Barmore never faded. He was a beast the entire year. But when Judon started to fade a little bit towards the end of the year, I think what ended up happening is it's similar when you have an offense in a receiving core where you only have two guys, right? You have one guy over the top and one guy underneath, right? The 09 Patriots.
Right.
When you only have two pass rushers up front that scare teams that can actually win one-on-one, then you can scheme ways to take both of those guys out. So Barmore's an interior player, so maybe they double him inside. And then Judon on the outside is getting chipped, and he's getting backs and tight ends in his way on the way to the quarterback. Those are easy to do for a team, especially smart coaching staffs. And now you're trapped in that if you're the Patriots and you don't have a third guy that can go ahead and beat a block. I think Wise and I think Josh Uche or Chase Winovich were supposed to be those guys, and it didn't pan out that way. So now maybe Trey Flowers comes back and is that third guy and becomes a three-headed monster that can get after the quarterback. You mentioned the last two seasons only played 7 games apiece. His value could not possibly be lower than it is right now on the open market in terms of what he could bring. And I think that there's this jump for a lot of Patriots fans, and I'm not necessarily disagreeing with the overall premise, but the jump is that they need to get younger on defense at all 3 levels, and we should play the kids and do all those types of things. But I think that there's a give and take with that, because first and foremost, Belichick's not going to play all the kids. Like, we know that. Like, they're not going to put out 4 or 5 rookies on the defensive side of the ball. They're just not going to do that. So I would like to see it not be the Dante Hightower, Jamie Collins, Kyle Van Noy show with all these veterans out there, but adding one more guy back into the mix like Trey Flowers, because if they draft a guy in the second or the third round that plays defensive line, unless he's as good as Barmore was, he's not going to play right away. We know that. Even Barmore took some time to earn his role and expand his role into a more full-time capacity. So just knowing the way that Bill Belichick operates, knowing what the Patriots need on the defensive line, I think this checks one box off their offseason priority list by bringing a guy like Trey Flowers back. You have the Belichick connection. You have the Matt Patricia connection, certainly.
Although, real quick on the Matt Patricia connection.
Yeah.
I went on this rant a couple weeks ago, something unrelated. If you Google Trey Flowers cover, or if you search Trey Flowers coverage on Twitter.
Oh, no.
And they used to do that thing where they put Trey Flowers in coverage on third down.
Yeah.
Well, Matt Patricia's coaching the offensive side of the ball now, so we don't have to worry about that.
Right.
Can we just think about, though, like Matthew Judon, Christian Barmore, Trey Flowers across that defensive line on third down?
Yeah, it'd be great.
Oh, that would be fun.
And maybe somebody like Ronnie Perkins or Josh Uche ends up actually being something next year, and you had even more juice into that pass rush package, right? So,
right.
Or maybe they draft a guy, in a Leo Chenal or somebody like that can also blitz up the middle, and you start to actually get after the quarterback a little bit more than what they did at the end of last year. And yeah, we're all both on board with Trey Flowers. I don't think it's going to cost the Patriots very much at all, given the fact that he hasn't had the production, hasn't been on the field over the last couple of years. And his last season with Patricia, even though he only played half the year and was hurt and in and out of the lineup, his production was actually at the same clip as it had been the rest of his career in the NFL. So I actually think that the transition last year away from Patricia and into Dan Campbell's staff also hurt Trey Flowers a lot in terms of his role was not what he was hired to do in Detroit anymore. And that I think really played with him a little bit when he was in that system. between the Patriots and then between the Lions. He was in that Belichick system for his entire career up until that point. So a totally different scheme. So we're both all in on Trey Flowers. That's a great move the Patriots could potentially make. And I think that one could come together as soon as next week, if not earlier. I think this one's really got some legs to it.
Yeah. No, again, I'd put it, it's funny. I think the two guys I'd put, like, they need a corner, right? So I probably should have a corner higher. I guess Carlton Davis would probably be my number one free agent for them. After that, my two biggest names are guys who are cut in, what is it, the last 48 hours? Bobby Wagner and Trey Flowers.
Yeah.
Like,
so we're going to get to Bobby Wagner in a second.
If they had a corner in one of those two guys, and I don't know that would cost them I don't really know what Wagner's market's going to be, actually. I'm kind of stuck on that one. But if they were to add like a mid-level corner in Trey Flowers, doesn't that feel like a success? Doesn't that feel like a good, and I've talked about this before, they don't need to have that fireworks free agency this year that they had last year for it to be a success. You pair it with the draft, obviously, but I've used the term targeted signings. I think specifically targeted signings are kind of what they need. And that's what it feels like. All right, solid, strong side edge defender. You add a veteran corner, you draft another one. Now it feels like, even though you lose JC Jackson, it feels like the pieces are kind of starting to come together on defense, doesn't it? And I wouldn't call any of, maybe Carlton Davis, if that's the corner they go with, would be, but I don't know that any of those signings would be like monumental home run signings, right?
Yeah.
Thanks for watching our content of the 6-time Super Bowl champion New England Patriots. Please subscribe to my podcast, Patriots Beat, on our YouTube channel, Patriots Press Pass, or wherever you get your podcasts for a lot more exclusive content right here on the CLNS Media Network.